Have you ever answered the phone only to realize it was ringing inside your head? Is it possible that your dog knows your social security number? And would you believe that a man once disappeared after microwaving a burrito for exactly 37 seconds? What about this one? Have you ever done the wrong thing? Not because you wanted to, but because you were moving too fast to notice? Yeah. Me too, I've done that. Let's slow that last one down. Let's examine that. This is the Jeffrey Breedwell Audiocast. Welcome. This is a special episode. It's our 10th episode. And for this episode, it is 3 times as long. Because there are 3. That's right, 3. Not just 1, not just 2, but 3. But not 4, just 3. Blogs today. They all talk about the same thing. They all talk about moral mechanics. That's the mechanics of morality. It started out as a very normal question. It was a very normal thought. And then it turned into a spreadsheet, which then turned into a bunch of mathematical formulas. But that's how you know it's about morality. And I want to talk about how we decide who we're becoming by examining these choices that we make. And we're going to get into that. But first, I want to let you know that each one of these blogs is called The Art of Deciding, Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. And they're all available on my Substack, which you can have a link to at jeffreybreedwell.com. That's my website, jeffreybreedwell.com. That's Geoffrey. Breedwell, just like I would, breedwell.com. The Substack directly, you can just link there. It's right there on the homepage. You can find it and be like, oh yeah, it's right here. So we have 3 different ones all about moral mechanics. But it's the art of deciding. And we're going to go ahead and just get right into it. Because we're all connected by choice. We choose to do this activity or say the one thing, or rather we choose not to say that one thing, only to regret it later. We choose what to eat, what not to eat, to argue with our partner about what to eat. We choose our music, our clothes, our jobs, our cars, our entire lives. We choose everything about our lives. If the power of choice is so prevalent in our daily lives, then why does it feel so overwhelming? When choices are taken away, why do we miss them? Why would we rather have the illusion of choice than make an actual choice? According to a 2016 Psychology Today article, we scurry through life making about 35,000 choices a day. A more recent Noom study, released on the Mirror UK website, stated that the number was closer to 122 choices per day. Taking both articles as valid, we make 122 to 35,000 choices a day. Accounting for sleep, that means the average person makes one choice every 2 to 8 minutes. In the Noom study, the chief psychologist, Andreas Michaelides, described the toughest choices for everyone sampled, who were all British, but we'll try not to hold that against them. The hardest choices. Number 20, the time for the alarm. 19, appetizer or dessert. 18, mode of transport. 17, birthday plans for yourself. 16, social plans. 15, what time to get up. 14, where to vacation. 13, do you eat at home or get takeaway? Number 12, what dish to eat. Number 11, what book to read. Just put the VHS in the bag, bro. Number 10, go out or stay in. Number 9, meal prep or not. Number 8, ask someone out. Number 7, one more biscuit. Number 6, bedtime. Number 5, exercise or not. Number 4, buy new or buy used. Number 3, what to wear. And number 2, what to eat. And number 1, the hardest choice to make. according to this new study, is what to watch. Do you agree with any of these? There are some on the list that where past relationships have fallen apart, and I don't think it's coincidence that out of the 20 toughest choices surveyed, 7 of those dealt with food. And in a study published by the weight loss company, 35% of the results of the toughest 122 choices made per day deal with food. Seems a bit slanted. That's the problem with choice and studies surrounding it. While each of the 8 billion, and climbing, members of humanity has their individual perception, what is missing is a fundamental truth. Each of the 8 billion and counting people is their own universe. That's a true multiverse. Every person has their own morals, beliefs, perceptions, desires, and characteristics. This is what makes psychology and sociology so interesting. In the 8 billion and counting individual universes, there are fundamental commonalities among them. The fact that 35% of the toughest choices surround food isn't surprising. If we choose from a range of 122 to 35,000 choices per day, then how can we not get overwhelmed by it all? The Noom study recommended journaling, and there's a litany of blogs, papers, and books on how to choose what, when, where, why, how, but there aren't any that I've seen, anyway, that give the solution I'm going to give. And that's moral mechanics. And part 1 of moral mechanics is categories. And there are 3 categories for choice. If we make between 122 and 35,000 choices per day, then we can make anywhere from 1.33 million to 382 million choices if you count every choice for 30 years. That's an incredible number of choices. Those are some unmanageable numbers. But to make sense of choices, let's break it down to how many choices that we, as humans, make per minute. Accounting for 8 hours of sleep, the spectrum of our speed of choice breaks down like this: 122 choices per day to 35,000 choices per day. 7.625 choices per hour to 2,187.5 choices per hour. From 0.127 choices per minute to 36.5 choices per minute. To 2.1 times 10 to the negative third choices per second, to a little over half choices per second, 0.6. Now, making 2.1 times 10 to the negative third choice is pretty slow. That's 0.0021 choices a second. That's about 1 choice every 8 minutes, roughly. That garden snails move faster than that at 0.013 meters per second. On the flip side, 0.6 choices per second is tons faster. That's roughly 1 choice every 2 minutes. Although not every choice can be made in 2 minutes, some choices, like the toughest stated above, take longer. Other choices, like even those on that list, we can design faster. For example, number 9, whether or not to meal prep. That choice is negated with a simple clarifier. Can I cook? In my case, no. And with this in mind, I've developed 3 different categories of choice to help us decode which choice is which category. Then, using the list that we stated, we can decode the toughest choices of all time into those categories, giving a basis to break them down and solve them. Category 1. Category 1 choices are the quickest and easiest choices. These choices are binary in their approach and their thinking. They're either or. There's no middle ground. Bam, bam, bam. It's black and white thinking exclusively here. It's either go to jail or proceed to go and collect $200. And often these choices are solved by our subconscious. Category 2. Category 2 choices are the Goldilocks zone style choices. You've either got too much or too little, and then it's a bad decision. If you're in the sweet spot of something, where it's right in the middle, you're in the golden zone. You are just right. These choices take a little longer to decide, and often we go back and forth before we find out what's just right. Then there's category 3. Category 3 choices are the most difficult choices to make. These choices can take days, weeks, or even months to solve. They're the choices that thought experiments are primed for. These choices are the moral arguments, the hypotheticals, or the everything is a great option choice. In this category, there is no black and white. It's gray and a rainbow. Everything is good and everything is bad. It's the Schrodinger's cat of categories. The choice comes down to which option is preferable to the decision maker. Now, we can categorize the top 20 as follows. What to watch? Category 3. What to eat? Category 3. What to wear? Category 2. Buy new or buy used? That's category 1. Exercise or not? Category 2. Bedtime? Category 3. And so on and so forth. Breaking the choices into percentages of the categories, we find that category 1 on the top 20 hardest choices is 25%. Category 2, that golden zone, is at about 45% of the choices. And category 3 is 30%. And using this list, we can see something extraordinary. If we take that list above as an example of the choices we might make in a day with the percentages of those choices, then we can see how many decisions we make in each category per day in our range from 122 choices per day to the 35,000 choices per day. In category 1, we go anywhere from 30 and a half choices per day to 8,750 choices per day. Category 2, it's about 55 choices per day to 15,750 choices per day. And category 3, the largest one, the one that takes the most time, 36.6 choices per day to 10,500 choices per day. Now, category 2 does make up the bulk of our decisions per day. We can try and define the sweet spot in our day, and that's why we're trying to find the sweet spot throughout each choice we make. Now, having all of this information is well and good, but how does it help to make a choice faster? How do you take the categories here and then decide what's best or not? How can we become more efficient, make better choices, and make the world a better whole just by dividing our choices into categories? Well, dividing the choices into categories is, as I said, that first step into that larger world of making better choices. This is true. It's the first step into a groundbreaking field of philosophy and psychology that I'm calling moral mechanics. I've devised a way to not only make identifying choices easier, guiding you to make smarter choices in your everyday life, but also, through these choices, tie together a person's spirit, mind, and body in the reaction of how a choice affects each one of us. Now, if that's got you, hold on tight, because this blog has been sponsored by Morals. Morals, telling us what's right and what's wrong since 1754. And now, back to our program. Remember school dances? I remember only 2 vividly, oddly enough. And every other memory of a high school dance comes from watching sitcoms like Saved by the Bell, or in movies like Heavyweights. And in Saved by the Bell, everyone had a date. While in Heavyweights, the heaviest weight was the awkward forced social interaction between the 2 sets of adolescents. The last dance I remember was my junior prom. That was one of the worst experiences of my entire life. My date was named Lisa, and I only asked her in an awkward display because she had no one to go with. Being the bleeding heart that I am, I said, I'll go with you. And that was that. I got the tux, she got a dress. We took pictures at her friend's house, and her friend drove us to the hotel in downtown Nashville, where the prom was held in a ballroom. We walked in together, her on my arm, And the moment we entered the ballroom, she ditched me. My mom was the assistant principal at my school at the time, and it became clear that Lisa used me as an entrance to boost her social status. Not to be outdone, later in the night, I asked her for a dance. We danced, and I completely misread the situation. I thought I was winning her back. I was not. I went in for a kiss and got cheek. Ouch. The rest of the night, I sat with one of my best friends until she and her friend were done dancing. She and her friend discussed the after-party plans in the car with me in the back seat and said, "So, Jeff, we're going to let you off at your house." I was heartbroken. I was furious. I was so ticked off that I brought the experience into the stand-up comedy routine I was doing at the time. I joked about her, misnaming her as Tom with too much facial hair. Admittedly, it was a funny joke, and it got better when my revenge hit at our senior night. Lisa was one of the hosts, and I did my stand-up act. I made fun of everyone who ever made fun of me growing up. I joked about my last name. I joked about the bully who crapped his pants in 8th grade. And yes, I even did the prom joke. The act was clean, albeit terrible by comedy standards, but in a high school in the stretching fat part of the Bible Belt, it was Andrew Dice Clay in the 1980s. Parents told the producer of the show, "I will not buy a tape of Tonight if Jeffrey Breedwell is in it." Honestly, it's one of my better high school moments. Now, what I missed during the time was the other side of the story. Years later, I discovered that Lisa was in the closet. Now, while that doesn't excuse her behavior, it does explain the why. Would I do that again? No. I learned a lot through the years regarding the LGBTQ community, and ironically enough, I'm the father of 2 daughters, both of which are LGBTQ. At the heart of every choice is a moral decision. A moral is a behavior and concept relating to right and wrong. And ethics is how we choose between right and wrong through a personal system. For example, during my studies at Lipscomb University, I took a class called Christian Ethics, which dissected the moral system of Christianity in its current paradigm. Taking a class called Christian Nationalist Ethics would yield an entirely different curriculum, based not on Christian morals, but those specific to Christian nationalism. I got an A in Christian Ethics, while I'd most likely fail Christian Nationalist Ethics. Partly because I would argue how wrong it is. But every person is their own universe. And with being our own universe, we also have our own set of moral standards. We have our own definition of what's right and what's wrong, which usually parallels the culture or religion with which we identify ourselves. As a Christian, I associate my sense of right and wrong with the scriptures of the Holy Bible. Quick pause right here just for a second. I would like to say the following. I do not adhere to many of the current translations of scriptures, specifically dealing with the term homosexual, which was a term invented in 1947. The inclusion in the modern day translations was a mistranslation that has been thoroughly documented. There are several discrepancies between what I believe and what people might think when they hear that I am a Christian. Just let me explain that I follow the 2 greatest commandments from Matthew 22:36-40, and I allow those to frame how I see the world. For me, in other words, love is love, and love is over all. If you want any more information, I do have an episode of why I'm still a Christian even after being kicked out. There's more information in there. All right. Now, if I were from a different religion, I would adhere to the moral system within that religion. But it's within this system of morality in mind that I need to give you an absolute truth that might just blow your mind. every decision is a moral decision. Every single one, without exception. Every choice falls into one of the three categories, and each one of those categories constructs the choice of models and vices that the decision measures. So if every choice is a pack of Oreos, the category is the opening ceramic lid that's spilled into the wrapper. Oreos. Sorry. I like Oreos. But like, Jeff, how are Oreos like moral or immoral? They're just like a cookie, dude. Rhea, they're just a cookie. I hear you. This is true. They're a delicious and addictive chocolate cookie with a creamy center that goes best with milk, ice cream, or depression. Now, the decision to eat Oreos is a moral conundrum. If you're on a diet, Oreos are a temptation. They're not a part of a well-balanced diet, usually. Using the 7 heavenly virtues and 7 deadly sins from Catholicism as an example guide, we can decipher that eating Oreos is a choice between gluttony as a vice and temperance, or moderation, as a virtue. Having 1 Oreo is temperance. Having 10 is gluttonous. If you're strict on your diet, then it's between sloth as the vice and diligence, virtue. And that is worth saying that Oreos aren't evil. They're not. They're a delicious dessert loved by billions of people around the world. It's the choice that reveals something deeper about each one of us. And that's the point. Every choice, no matter how big or small, carries moral weight. In the story about the dance, I might have begun with noble intentions of aiding someone, but after being hurt, I was given a choice. I could have forgiven Lisa and been done with it, or I could have taken revenge in the best way I knew at the time. As you heard, in my pain, I lost my ethical fortitude and took revenge. Now, my feelings were valid and completely reasonable. But taking revenge, it was greedy. It was spiteful. It was selfish. It was vice after vice after vice, repeating each time I took the stage to tell that joke from the first time until the last time. But who decides which morals and which vices count? Whose belief system matters more to this? Which code of ethics do we prescribe to this method of moral mechanics? Honestly, it doesn't matter. The math works out the same either way, regardless. Simply put, math doesn't have any favorites. Math is not moral. Math is math. Imagine a never-ending hallway. It's endless. Door after door after door after door after door after door after door. There's no worry about any mysterious ghost twins or a child riding a tricycle blindsiding you. Instead, behind every door is an alternate universe. It's an alternate version of you, at least as far as you can recognize, just slightly different. In this infinite hallway with infinite universes and infinite versions of you, they split from the hallway of your timeline due to one choice. In one universe, you chose to eat the Oreos. In another universe, you decided to go alone to prom. And in a third universe, you dedicated your life to stand-up comedy. In that universe, you're unfunny and homeless. It'd be tragic if it wasn't so ironic. Okay, did I lose you? It was a bit personal there. I do that often. Lose people. But stay with me. Okay? This time, I'm bringing everything together without getting into the complex mathematics. Now, the infinite hallway will come into complete focus and I'll solidify the truth that you probably already know. That the start and end of our lives is dependent on the very people on whom we have an impact. Every door, after all, leads somewhere. And where it leads depend on who you were with when you turn the knob. I call this the dependency tendency, or DT for short, and it's a key part of moral mechanics. It shows the lifelong effects of our moral choices, whether we choose the moral positive, for choose, or the moral negative, vices. Imagine an average human being. This average human makes half positive moral choices and half negative ones. Just like any other human being, just like us. When we take a look at this person's life on a graph of how dependent they are, it looks something like a parabolic standard deviation. From birth, we are incredibly dependent on other people. At 6 months of age, we form choices, yet we are still dependent on others. This level of dependency decreases with age, but it never reaches zero. We are a communal species, after all. We are at least dependent for about 15 to 20 years, depending on the choices, but we'll get into that in a minute. These are our adult years. And note that as we age, our dependency on others increases. And as we go into our later adult and elderly years, our dependency on others increases. However, we won't be as dependent as when we were infants. Our bodies break down and deteriorate, and we might end up in the home or receive 24/7 nurse care. Now, the graph I have only goes up to 96 years old. However, we can see that the dependency would increase every year. But what causes this fact of life? As I said in the beginning, it's our choices. Now, if someone chooses the positive moral outcome for every outcome, their graph looks similar, but there is one noticeable difference. That's their dependency score. The score is remarkably higher for someone who chose the moral positive for every choice since 6 months old. The highest score in this instance is 23,801 at 6 months old. The second highest was 20,616.57 at 96 years old. And the lowest was 2,506.44 at 33 years old. So why is the DT so much higher when making a positive moral choice than it would be at a 50-50 split? Would a DT score look similar if someone made all the morally negative choices? I ran that data. The DT score for all negative at 6 months was negative 987.38 at 90. And at 96, it was negative 772.06. At its highest, when all the other charts would be at its least dependent, it scored a negative 90.94 at age 34. Choosing the negative moral value would have huge determinative impact on a person's life over time. Not only would this imaginary person's life be incredibly horrible, but their level of dependence would negatively impact others. And placing the charts side by side, it makes it all clear. The positive choices are much more on top than the average or even the negative. But this could only mean one thing. The positive moral choices make everything better. The impact on others is exponential. The age of when we're our lowest is also around the time when we're at our most physically capable. And even in old age, our dependence on others has a profound impact on the world around us. Ironically, in all my work, all my effort only proved what we already know. It showed that positive moral choices have the greatest impacts on our lives and the lives around us. If love is the basis for every positive moral value, then this data only shows what philosophers, priests, religious deities have been telling mankind since our inception. Loving others to the same level that you love yourself is the key to making the world a better place. And in each door, there's a different version of you. In each door, you choose the positive moral choice or the negative moral choice. While it's not always clear which choice is which, choosing the one that shows the most love will be the closest to a positive moral outcome. And philosophy aside, there is a science to this. Okay? Dr. Candace Pert's research into neuropeptides, amino acids, and neurobiology was groundbreaking. In her book, Molecules of Emotion, Pert showed how our emotions are more than just thoughts in our heads. They affect us physically. Her research created the roadmap that links the mind and the body. Moral mechanics continues Pert's work, albeit without the scientific notation. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to immerse myself in a doctoral program to prove what I'm about to say. However, I'm not doing that at this moment. But through one door, there is a version of me relentlessly pursuing the title of Dr. Breedwell without having to run a fertility clinic. I mean, shoot, there's probably another version of me that is Dr. Breedwell running a fertility clinic. But here's the point. Moral mechanics links the spirit, the mind, and the body in a whole human, whole life approach to care. With moral mechanics, we can not only aid people in therapy, social work, elderly care, but we can also open the door to evaluating someone. We can also open the door for not just for what disease they have, but for who they are as a person and where they are on their journey. Moral mechanics is the art of deciding and how to make the most positive moral choice at any given time, knowing it will only benefit the decider and the world around them. And every day we walk in that infinite hallway. Every choice, every turn of the handle brings us closer to love or further from it. And the only thing we have to do is just open the door. Now, I do want to say this, that I do have a mathematical ending to moral mechanics where I prove all of this in math. I prove all of this in graphs, in the charts. I break it all down. I break down which neuropeptides affect our body based on Dr. Pert's work. I break down it all, every little bit. But that's also incredibly long. And I have no problem doing that, making YouTube video of it, doing something on my Substack on it, posting something. But I'm only going to release it to paid subscribers if there's a demand. Not saying that, I'm not going to necessarily put this out in the world or whatnot to do it, to be morally right, because that's what I'm doing here. I'm putting it out in its most easily digestible form. But proving it in the math, getting into the really big nuts and bolts of moral mechanics and that philosophy, I totally can, and I would love to. But I'm only going to do that to subscribers on my Substack, particularly the paid subscribers, if there is a demand. So if you want the demand, go to my Substack, go to my website, let me know. Contact me. Hey, I want this, thing. I want my moral mechanics now. That type of thing. I want my math. Prove it in the math. And I will. I'll prove it. You can go to my website. Again, jeffreybreedwell.com. It's GEOFFREY and then Breedwell, just like I would, breedwell.com. You can also go directly to the Substack. It's jeffreybreedwell.substack.com. Comment there. Comment on the article on the blog. You can comment and contact me on my website. You can even comment on this episode of the podcast and say, I want my moral mechanics now. I want my math. Tell me that. Make sure, again, you hit follow, you hit subscribe, you do the normal thing to keep up so you keep up with these episodes, and I will do it. I will give you the math. No problem in doing that. But I want to make sure it's going to be heard and not fall into an empty field. That's the only thing I really want to make sure of. Because if every human is our own universe, that also means that within every human, within every bit of what's wrong with us or what's right with us, we each have our own story. And it's those stories that I'm really interested in knowing. It's those stories that I'm really interested in finding out between the mechanics of it, between the morality of it, and what that really means. And I would really love to see even how this helps out not just elderly care, not just the whole human, whole life approach to care, but also how it might affect AI and AGI. I would love to collaborate with people who are that. And if you are within that field, hit me up on my website, jeffreybreedwell.com/contact. Hit me up there and tell me, you're an AI person and I want to see, we can talk about kind of what's going on with that and how that might work. Because there's a key aspect that we need to find a hole through, especially with the rise of AGI, is, does AGI know morals? With humanity, we know morals, and we know morals based on what's right and what's wrong, based on how we react. With AI, it's a little bit different. But again, that's another discussion for another day. Just let me know. Let me know what you want. If you want to have the math, I want my math now. I want my moral mechanics now. I want my MTV. If you say I want my MTV, I'm going to know what you mean. But that's it. That's what I wanted to take you through. I wanted to take you through this journey of what moral mechanics is and really introduce you into this world that I've been developing. And I've been trying to understand my own world through it. So if you enjoy it and you enjoy this little scamp that we'd like to have, this what ended up being our 10th episode, our longest episode yet, let me know. Feel free to hit follow and subscribe. Make sure you rate the audio cast. You hit the like button, hit the little heart. And I would love it. So much so that I will see you next week. The same Jeff time. The same Jeff channel. Anyway, I'll catch you next time.